WMPG, Gorham, Portland.
Hi, Golden Age film fanatics, and welcome to DVD Classics Corner on the Air. My name is Dick Dinman, and our goal is to become your exclusive guide to the very best of the Golden Age classics coming out on DVD. We'll have reviews, breaking news of upcoming releases, plenty of surprise guests, and a special feature devoted to the great Golden Age film composers, which we call Cinemusic. So let's turn on the marquee and lights, camera, action.
All right! Point up north!
These were the men and women who saw the horizons beyond the horizon. And this was the man the tall man looked up to, and the woman who followed him wherever he led her. Starring Clark Gable as Allison, part Comanche, part granite, all man. Jane Russell as Nella, more woman than she's ever been before. Robert Ryan as Stark, deadly as a killer snake.
I want a tall man, don't want a small man. Long as he is all man, that's good enough for me.
That last voice you heard was that of our very, very special guest, Jane Russell, as we pay tribute to the undisputed king of Hollywood, Clark Gable, on the occasion of the release of 20th Century Fox's Clark Gable Collection, which includes 3 of his greatest blockbusters. First, there's The Call of the Wild with Loretta Young. Then there's Soldier of Fortune, co-starring red-hot Susan Hayward. And finally, and well, this is my personal favorite, The Tall Men, in which Gable almost succeeds in taming Spitfire sensation Jane Russell, who's about to give me her particular perspective of this cinema giant of giants. The Tall Men is directed by one of my favorite directors, Raoul Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
I just think he was...
I loved Raoul.
Yeah.
They had warned me, don't ever go on that man's set. He's very mean. I worked with Raoul, and I absolutely adored him. I called him Father, and every time we had a Father's Day, I found him someplace.
Oh.
I would phone him or go and see him. I just loved him.
How was it working with Clark Gable?
He was the biggest tease that ever walked.
In what way?
He would just tease you. Any way he knew how. I had met him before, and actually what it was, I was dating Robert Waterfield.
Yes.
Had been for some time. And then we broke up, and I started going with John Payne. John Payne had taken me to this producer's house, and the wife had been a very good friend of Clark Gable's wife that had died, had been in the air crash.
Carol Lombard.
And I got to meet him then. So, but then I never saw him until we started doing The Tall Men.
Yes.
But he remembered that I was there with John Payne, and so Robert Waterfield had come down to Mexico to see me, because I had been in Europe for 6 months before that.
Yes.
Making another picture, and we hadn't gotten to see each other very much, and so he came down there, and he was across this patio talking to somebody on the set. We weren't working, it was free time, And Gable was sitting next to me, and he proceeded to start talking about John Payne. And don't you ever see John Payne anymore? And he was such a nice... And I looked at him, and I held up my fist, and I said, I'm going to kill you, shut your mouth. And he went right on laughing and saying John Payne. Well, he did it just so that Robert couldn't quite hear it, but he knew it was driving me crazy. And he also was doing this with everybody, a big tease. And Raoul and he were in a house together down there, and I was in another house with my stand-in and best friend, Carmen. Anyway, Raoul knew what he had been doing to everybody. So he found a de-skunked skunk, and he put it in Gable's bedroom, and when Gable, came in from work and was going to go in and take a shower, he and he went back against the wall, and he's like, Raoul, Raoul, Raoul. And pretty soon, the door is kicked open, and Raoul is rolling one of his cigarettes and laughing his head off. And then he told us, and we were all thrilled that we got even with him somehow. So he was a lot of fun. He really was.
Well, what's interesting is I think you got together with him on The King and Four Queens. The King and Four Queens was produced by your company and Clark Gable's company. Gable
was hoping I would be in it, but the point was I could only be in so many pictures that we made.
Yeah.
And we needed some pictures that I wasn't in.
Now a scene from The Tall Men with Clark Gable and our guest, Jane Russell.
That's the fastest bit of prospecting I ever saw.
I came down here for just one reason, Mr. Allison.
Peekaboo clothes and everything.
And I got no more use for you or your insults.
I know all about you. The great Mr. Allison. Fighting and loving everything in sight on both sides of the Rio Grande.
All right. You gonna start apologizing?
Oh, you're talking upside down. I got nothing to apologize about.
Just you keep coming and you'll see what happens. It's better. Now, you gonna apologize?
No.
Go on, lady. Shoot him. Go on. Shoot him.
Won't work good without these.
Oh, you dirty, sod-busting, woman-chasing connoisseur.
That's all, Prospector.
Looks like she's in love with you, Hermano. Out cold.
She's never been cold in her life.
You're listening to WMPG 90.9 on your dial, FM, Portland. Jane Russell will return in just a few minutes to talk about Marilyn Monroe, Howard Hughes, and her own legendary career. But first, another of Gable's co-stars who, by the way, also dated him, Audrey Totter, gabs about Gable. You worked also with an actor who a few of our audience may know named Clark Gable.
Oh, yeah, but it was just a little scene. But I dated Clark Gable.
No.
Yeah.
What kind of a man was Clark Gable?
Darling. He was a sweet man, never made a pass.
Really?
Was a complete gentleman.
Huh.
And he once said the sweetest thing to me. We went to a party, and we were sitting at the table with Lana Turner, who had just married Bob Topping, the billionaire.
Yes.
And she had all these gorgeous jewels on, and she was showing them off to Clark. And he turned to me and he said, "You admiring Lana's jewelry?" And I said, "I sure am." He said, "Honey, your jewels are inside." Isn't that nice? That's the kind of man he was.
That is marvelous to hear because, of course, as far as I'm concerned, when I hear somebody call Elvis Presley the King...
Oh, yeah, I want to throw up.
Thank you very much. No way.
Don't quote me.
Clark Gable was indeed the king.
He was the king.
And one of the most I heard, one of the most cooperative and charming gentlemen you could ever work with.
Oh yeah. And it was, I worked with him, and he was always very careful to see that I had the best camera angle and all those things. He was very, I don't know, he was just a complete gentleman.
Isn't it amazing that some of these mega stars of the Golden Age seem to have no ego? They're not worried about their own...
Well, they were professional.
Exactly.
That's the difference. They're all amateurs tonight. Don't quote me.
And well, and there was very little temperament on the MGM.
Oh, I didn't. Well, as far as I know, none was displayed.
Right. Let's return to my conversation with Jane Russell. The beginning of your career, thanks primarily to Howard Hughes, is in many ways very strange, with movies that are made but held up for 7 years or 9 years. There's so much publicity about you, and it took forever for your first film to come out. It must have been...
Well, it's because of The Outlaw had that one scene with some cleavage in it.
Yeah.
And, the cameraman had noticed that and said, no, I don't think we can do this scene that way. I'm going to have to move. And so he moved, where I was taking the covers and putting them over Jack Butel when he was so sick.
Yes.
And that was the main reason. And now we're doing cleavage in the back.
Yeah. But here's how did you deal suddenly with all of this attention after, a normal, I'm sure a normal upbringing? Suddenly you're thrust into the limelight. It must have been very rough on you in many ways.
Well, actually, before I had started working in a picture at all, I had been modeling with Tom Kelly.
Ah.
And so when the Russell Birdwell Company was supposed to be publicizing me, and so they sent me out with a photographer 5 days a week when I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so it was just doing some more of what I'd already done.
I see.
It wasn't a big,
was not a big
change for me.
But what I'm thinking is, for instance, of another Russell, Gail Russell, who also had a big first film called The Uninvited, and somehow could not handle her success. There are a lot of people who fall by the wayside because they can't handle it. What do you think got you? What got you through these times was the fact that I guess you took it in your stride.
Well, I'm pretty practical.
Yeah, obviously.
And I was a Valley girl. I wasn't a Beverly Hills girl at all. Gable was a Valley guy. We just had our feet on the ground. And I had 4 brothers. I had 1 girl cousin, and we were surrounded by 12 boys.
Oh.
She had 6 brothers. I had 4, and Aunt Ruth had 2 other boys. And we were raised that way, so I was pretty used to all that.
Would you consider yourself a tomboy when you were young?
Oh, sure, absolutely. You have nothing but tomboys when you say you're a Valley girl. It was all horses out there, and we had 4 horses. We were raised with them, and the Valley was a gorgeous place in those days, but it was all country and alfalfa fields and horses and cows out in the pasture and houses sitting way back, and we had a beautiful house, but they absolutely refused to ever photograph it because I was supposed to be this poor little girl that was helping my mother with 5 children, and my father was dead.
Oh. Do you have a favorite film of yours that...
Oh, I think by far Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is the best one I got to do. I loved working with Bob Hope. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven when I got to work with him.
Yes.
Because you did 2 takes, or, you did 1 take, and if there was a mistake, you did 2.
Yeah.
You weren't doing 90.
Huh. Well,
We worked on The Outlaw 9 months. It should have been made in 8 weeks.
Oh. Well, obviously Howard Hughes was not
a director.
A director. But I have...
He was a very sweet man, but he was not a director.
I have heard, though, that if Howard Hughes gave his word was gold.
Oh, he did. He absolutely did.
Yeah, I've been told that he had a considerable amount of integrity.
Yes, he did.
And that's, what it's just amazing. The publicity that goes out about people like Howard Hughes it just seems to me to be so unfair.
People are writing books about him. They never met him, don't know him at all. It's just sickening.
Did you see the movie The Aviator?
Yes.
What did you think?
It was very good. Because Howard was a genius when it came to mechanical things.
Yes.
See, there's a lot of difference between being a director and dealing with people,
yes,
or mechanical things.
Yeah.
He when he was in that crash, that terrible crash after The Outlaw, he was in a hospital bed, and they still had to wind it up at the bottom of the bed if they wanted the head part to come up.
Yes.
And he just thought, no, this should be done electrically with a button. And it was done that way from then on.
Huh.
He was a genius that way.
Yes, obviously. And by the way, I have heard from quite a few people that Marilyn Monroe would never have gotten through Gentlemen Prefer Blondes if it hadn't been for you.
The press was really trying to turn us into enemies, and it was ridiculous because she was like a little sister.
No,
it was only her second movie that she had a starring role in.
Yes.
And they had never given her a dressing room on the lot.
Huh.
She had her first dressing room, and she came in way before I did and was all ready, but was nervous about going out on the set.
Yeah.
And her makeup man told mine, and I just said, okay, I'll go by. And I went by, and I said, come on, baby, let's go. We got about 10 minutes. And she'd go, oh, all right. And up she'd get, and we went on together. She was like a little sister.
But that's exactly what I mean. Many people have said she wouldn't have gotten through the film if you hadn't been so close to her.
Well, she got through a lot of others that she was late getting on the set, and people were sitting there fussing, and where the hell is she, and all this nonsense. Go by and get her.
Yeah. How did Howard Hawks treat her?
Well, she was working with her coach.
Yes.
Every single night before, the night before, she was rehearsing, learning her lines, and working with the coach.
Yeah.
And the coach was on the set the next day. And Marilyn her head would immediately, after the scene, look to the coach. How did you like it, And you don't do that to Howard Hawks.
No.
So he had the coach put off the set. And Marilyn ran to her dressing room and cried.
Oh.
But she also did that when Daddy, the guy playing Daddy, Tommy Noonan, they'd had a kissing scene.
Yes.
And some guy came up to him and said, well, you just kissed Marilyn Monroe. Now, what was it like? And he looked up at the sky and he said, it was like being swallowed alive. Well,
oh my God.
She heard it and burst into tears and ran to her dressing room. I would have said to him, honey, you'd be so lucky. But she did. She was very sensitive, and she got her feelings hurt.
And very fragile.
And she'd had a terrible life before that.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think Robert Mitchum knew her in the early days when
yeah, I think they were both working at Lockheed or something.
That's right.
During the war.
That's right. And I think Mitchum was a friend of her first husband.
Yeah.
So that's probably why he tried to protect her on
oh, sure.
on River of No Return.
Uh-huh.
I am so grateful for your spending this time. I wish you the very best, and all I can say is I can't think of an actress who is more fun to watch than you, because you know you have a way of standing up to every leading man. No one pushes Jane Russell around. And that, I'm serious, and that's a wonderful...
Well, I was raised around 12 boys. Come on.
Well, maybe that's the reason.
Sure, absolutely. I wasn't nervous about boys.
But it's a great... on screen, it's just so wonderful to watch. Back and forth. You give as good as you get. And that's a wonderful thing to witness. I thank you so much, Jane Russell, for taking the time. And I look forward to talking to you soon again. Have a wonderful holiday, by the way.
Oh,
I know you're going
I'm going up to Washington State, where a lot of those boys live.
That's
2 of my brothers and a bunch of cousins, and it's way up near Canada and Idaho and in the woods with the big, huge trees all over.
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
I'm on my way up there.
Well, have a...
Okay, Richard, thank you very much.
Have a wonderful time, and thank you so much.
Okay, Dick.
My Cinemusic section this week consists of some music from Soldier of Fortune, which, as I mentioned, is one of the 3 titles in 20th Century Fox's Clark Gable collection. The music is composed and conducted by Hugo Friedhofer. Well, in addition to this great Gable collection that we've been talking about, my friends at 20th Century Fox Home Video have blessed classic movie mavens with 3 other terrific collections. The Will Rogers Collection with 4 timeless classics starring America's most beloved humorist. The Mr. Moto Collection starring Peter Lorre as the famous sleuth in 4 suspense hits. And the Jane Mansfield Collection, need I say more? With 3 of her most delightful comedy hits. You'll find these great collections at your local video store, even as we speak. I want to thank Mark Levin Management for arranging Jane Russell's appearance on my show. And I'm going to close with Robert Ryan's final lines in The Tall Men. Now, while they describe the character Clark Gable plays, they could just as easily apply to the great man himself.
There goes the only man I ever respected. He's what every boy thinks he's going to be when he grows up, and wishes he had been when he's an old man.
Well, that's our show for today. DVD Classics Corner on the Air is conceived, written, produced, and directed by me, Double D. Now I think I'll take a casual stroll to my website, www.dvdclassicscorner.net, and read some of those great reviews. And if you twist my arm, I may even write a few. So until next week on WMPG, keep happy, keep healthy, and keep listening.